Hey guys, it's TheSketchMonkey here and welcome back to the channel. I'm here at Audi Denver to have a look at this beauty. This is the 2023 Audi Q5 and this is the Prestige trim. So what we're going to do in this video is have a look at this front end design because we talk about big grills today and this definitely does have a big grill. So we can see if we maybe redesign something in the front, have a look at the side view, the rear, and the interior, and then we're gonna take this for a drive. Before we jump into the design details of this Audi Q5, let's have a look at some of the basic spec and tech. So we have a turbo inline 4 putting out 201 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque, connected to a 7-speed automatic transmission. Of course, you have quattro all-wheel drive, this being an Audi. Fuel economy sits at around 25 city, 29 highway, and the price for this is $58,000, and it does 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. So starting with the front end design of the 2023 Q5, I like this design. It's very German, it's very structural. You have the same kind of lines here as you have here, for example. You have the same line here, angle that you have in this graphic feature. You have the radars integrated in the side mounts or the side, I'm not going to call them intakes because they're fully covered by this plastic. And then you have this interesting silver trim that comes around all around this car, and that's maybe something that I would like to change with this design moving forward. So looking at the grille of this thing, yes, it is a massive grille, and the thing is, when you come closer here, you can see that only the half top part of it is actually functioning as a grille. This is where all the openings are. And you also have, it looks like, active shutters in there, which are now of course closed. And down here, this is all covered, so this is hard black gloss plastic at the lower part, and this is where I want to start to kind of experiment with this design. What if we made this grille a little shorter, maybe to this point, and have more of a bumper line at the bottom? I think that would look pretty cool. Coming up close and personal with the headlight, and I do love the design that we have in here. It feels like they spent a very long time, the designers, designing the internal pieces of the headlights themselves. And I think that's important because the headlights of a car is the eyeball of a car. You want them to be unique, and you also want to have a clear brand identity when you look at the headlights itself. I think Audi did a great job with the headlights here. You can see we have this Y shape, which is a sort of a connection to Lamborghini, and as you know, Audi owns Lamborghini, so you're gonna have a little bit of Lambo style cues in the Audi Q5. I think it looks pretty cool. All right, so if I were to redesign stuff in the front end of the Audi Q5, I think it looks maybe a little too serious in some ways. But then again, that's very German, and that's also what Audi has done for a long time. It feels a little bit more static than what Audi used to be maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So what I would like to do here is just cut this grille here, for example. You see that we talked about the lower part not being functional. So what if we moved this line up a little bit and also worked with these side graphics? I'm not sure I'm a fan of the silver trim pieces that we have inside here. So I want to try and figure out how we can do that. Maybe lower this section as well a little bit so we have more of a separation between the top half graphics and the lower bumper. Coming around to the side view of the Q5, and I have to say, I think this is actually the best view for this car in combination with the 3/4 rear view. I love the sharpness that we have, the same kind of sharpness that we have in the front end. Of course, continues in the side. This is an Audi, which means we're gonna have a strong shoulder going across the entire length of the car. And I think I've said this before, but when I was studying car design, we had designers from Audi come in and teach us about Audi design. What they said was that when you have quattro, which this does, the all-wheel drive system of Audi, you wanna have that visualized some way in the design. You can clearly see that here because this line does not go straight. It actually curves a little bit right over the rear axle, and then if you come in the front end, it also curves a little bit here over the front axle. And this is how Audi designers, even back in 2010, visualized the Audi Quattro system, and I think they did it the first time on the Audi R8. Let's talk about the wheel and tire setup here. You have two 35mm wide tires all around. You also have the 19-inch wheel. Something that I would change here is you can get the Q5 with 20-inch wheels, and I think the 20-inch look better. I don't think it's going to affect the comfort of the car, but it is going to affect how the car sits on the ground. So 19s look pretty good. It's if you want a more comfortable ride, you might want to go with these. But as I said, I don't think the 20s are going to change that. So switch these out to some sort of 20-inch wheels, I think that would just help this side view a lot. What I love about Audi and this Q5 as well are the proportions. Audi just have a ability to get all the proportions no matter what they're doing. The A6 Avant or the RS6 specifically with the wheels, these SUVs and the Roadsters, all of them just look fantastic, and even their EVs with the e-tron GT, for example. And the same goes for this Q5. I love the proportions of it. We have clear Audi definition. We have the silver trim coming back right here, as you can see, with a pretty thick ABCD pillar in this case, looking nice, creating a solid foundation for the end point of the side view. So coming around to the back end of the Q5, there are a couple of things here as well that I would like to redesign. So we're going to do a full redesign of this car today. From the front side, yes, we only did the wheels, but the wheels are more important than you think for a car. So we're also going to do a couple of changes back here. Interesting stuff going on. We have the silver trim sneaking back to the back side here as well. We have the chrome badge for the Audi, and look at these taillights, just how beautifully done they are, designed with these 3 LEDs in the middle. We're gonna take a closer look at that in just a second. Moving down though, in this area, this is where it gets a little bit tricky for me. I always like to come up close to lights when the designers have put a lot of effort into designing the internal pieces of the lights themselves. And that's the case with both the front end of the Q5 and the rear end as well. As I said, I love these graphics that we have in here. It looks very sharp and chiseled, and it does have a very clear dynamic feeling to it, because it goes from short here, not so tall, and a shorter strip, to a longer, taller, and even thicker at the very end. So we have two sort of versions of movements in the taillights of the Q5, and we also have this thick bar at the very end. All right, so we're coming down to the lower sections of the Q5, and this is where it gets tricky, and this is where I want to do some redesigns. For example, have a look at the size of this reflector light down here. But the thing is, it needs to be this big, because this doesn't have any brake lights in it, and since this assembly, the whole taillight assembly, is attached to the tailgate itself, regulations say that you need to have some sort of brake lights that is fixed onto the car, and that's why Audi had to put these massive reflector lights down here. You also have the reverse lights right here in the middle. Down here you do have quad tailpipes, but they're not visible, and I think the Q5 is sporty enough. Audi in general is sporty enough, and this is the mid sibling. You have the Q1, Q3, Q5, Q7, Q8. This sits right in the middle, so I think we can still have some fun with some tailpipe designs in this car. So I want to add some tailpipes in the lower part. Not sure what I want to do with this graphic feature here. Maybe change it a little bit to have, kind of looks out of place when you have the graphics just like a bar. And then you also have the rear mounted camera situated right there in the center. So a couple of redesigns in the back. Doesn't need a lot of changes, just a tiny few tweaks, and I think it would look fantastic. Welcome to the interior of the 2023 Audi Q5. It's absolutely gorgeous in here. Audi has really stepped it up with their interiors the last few years. We have this beautiful wood trim with the Quattro logo here to not forget what you're sitting in, and this is such an important little badge for Audi, you know, historically. So I do like that they put the Quattro logo on random places like this. We have a 10.2-inch infotainment screen right here, 10.1 I think it is, and then we have a 12.3-inch gauge cluster, which is fully digital, and you can do so many things with the gauge cluster right here. You can have it show the full map, you can have it show the range, you can have it show whatever you want, because that's what you want when you have a a digital gauge cluster. What's the point of having one if you can't customize it to the way you want? And then we have this very quick infotainment screen, super easy to use. Let's go into vehicle and see what we can do here. You have Audi Drive Select, for example. You have dynamic auto, comfort, off-road settings for the car, and you can set up an individual setting, so you just save the setting as you want and have it be individual. You have lights and visibility, exterior lighting, you can adjust that as well, automatic headlights, entry exit lighting, rain sensors, and all kinds of stuff for the vehicle. And you also have all the driver assistance settings here, and right now everything is on. So you have distance warning, traffic jam assist, Audi Presense, traffic light information, a lot of different things. And going into reverse, you're gonna get a pretty grainy reverse camera, but it doesn't matter to me. You also have a 360 view The reason why I don't really mind having a pretty grainy reverse camera, because it really doesn't mess up the function of a reverse camera. I can still see all the details that I need to see to help me reverse safely. But I do like that we, in addition to this camera, we also have a 360 camera to the right. Very cool system. I like this software that we have in the Audis. I'm not the biggest fan of the integration of this infotainment screen. It looks definitely like an iPad that's been glued onto the dash. But below it, we do have some very traditional looking vents, which is great, easy to adjust. Don't have to go into some software to adjust that. And of course, you also have the tactile climate control buttons and dials down here. Heated and cooled seats for both front passengers, which is fantastic for this price range. Then you have this strip of buttons. So if you just swipe your fingers above it, it actually goes to the settings that you want to adjust. You don't have to go in and press it. You just have to touch the buttons, and that's how it senses what it is you want to adjust. Pretty cool feature. Down here you have the buttons for all the drive select and safety features. Auto stops, engine stop on and off. You have traction control, parking assist, and another parking sensor button, hill descent control, and you have the camera button right here as well with the drive select. So you can select the drive mode here instead of having to go into the software itself. Looking at the overall quality of this interior, everything feels solid. You have a big panoramic sunroof back here, which I'm gonna keep closed for now. You have the visors, obviously, with mirrors in both the passenger and the driver. The dash is very simple in its design, but this is a Q5, so it's not supposed to be the upscale, very luxurious interior. But I think just having it simple like this makes it sort of feel very upscale. In the center console, we do have USB ports. We have a pad for your phone. Don't think this is wireless charging. It doesn't look like it. We have a 12 volt, we have the start stop button, and some more storage in the middle here. The volume knob is situated right here, which is a pretty interesting location for the volume controls of the car, but they're right there. And then you have some slots for a couple of markers and a big pen. Moving down here, look at this. You have heated and cooled cup holders. This is a fantastic idea that I want to see in a lot more cars, because it's so useful. If you have specifically if you have a hot drink, it goes cold very fast if you have the AC blasting. So just put your coffee in here and turn on the heating and you're all set. You don't have the wireless charging up here. Instead, they located it down here. So if you cover the cup holders, you do have the wireless charging pad in the center armrest. And if we lift this up, you can see that we have some storage down here. Not the biggest storage compartment, but it's fine. And you have a USB-C here. The armrest itself is also adjustable, so you can tilt it in and out to get your favorite driving position. Looking at the steering wheel, it's a nice looking steering wheel and it looks sporty. I like the small centerpiece that we have on this Audi Q5, this little section here with the nice chamfer going above it. And you have a replica of the grille. So the grille is still coming back in the interior. You can't get away from that grille in the front end. You still have it here in the steering wheel with some metal touches down here. This is actually plastic, but it looks like metal and adds some of the premium feel with paddles behind the steering wheel as well. Plastic paddles, they're very small. This is a car that I would probably use in automatic 99% of the time. But we do need to talk about this integration of the gauge cluster as well with the head-up display up front. Beautiful gauge clusters from Audi these days. I think they're doing a much better job than BMW. BMW have gone their own way, creating these big double 12.3 or 12.4 inch displays in one single screen. I prefer this integration so much better because it just looks nicer with the integration of the gauge cluster and everything you can customize with the cluster itself. Down here to the left, you do have a vent, and then you have all the lighting settings and the settings for the fog lights and so on. Very standard stuff. On the right side of the steering wheel, you have the heated steering wheel button, the controls for the radio, and on the left side, you do have the button to customize the gauge cluster to make the dials bigger, smaller. If you want to have a big map taking up the entire space, you can do that. Perfectly laid out interior, in my opinion, with the physical buttons, housing for the gauge cluster, a nice 10-inch screen, that's all you need, and enough storage here with, of course, a proper sized glove box. So with that said, we've talked about the front of the interior. Let's jump into the back and let's see how much space I have there at 6'1", behind my own driving position. Okay, so I have the front seat, the passenger seat in front of me, to the almost position that is my driving position. I still have plenty of legroom back here. And I love this color combo, the spec that we have in this car, with the wood trim in the doors and the dash, and we have the brown in combination with the beautiful deep blue exterior. It gives me some beach vibes, this specific spec. You do have a pocket here to store whatever you want. Head space is fantastic, which I'm surprised by, because when you look at this from side view, it has a pretty sloping roofline, but I still have enough space here. Plenty of space to even tilt my head back. For connectivity, you do have 2 regular USB-C ports and a 12-volt with heated seats in the rear and some climate control settings for the climate zones that you have in this car. So let's have a look at the trunk space in the Audi Q5. I think it's more than enough. I can fit anything and everything that I would ever want to fit in a car. I can fit that back here. You do have some LED lightings on the sides, which I think is nice, and you have some straps here as well. And if you want more space, you can always fold down the rear seats and you get a ton more space in the back. We've talked about the exterior, we talked about the interior. Now let's fire this up. It's actually already fired up, so let's just hit the gas and hear what this inline-4 sounds like. This has an inline-4 turbocharged all-wheel drive, obviously, with the quattro system. 201 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is said to be done in 5.5 seconds, which is not bad. But it's not a big car, so you don't need, 1,000 horsepower to go fast in this thing. Again, I don't think this is really what this Q5 is intended for, to go fast. It's more of a normal commuter car, but in a very luxurious package. It's super smooth. I have it in dynamic, as I said, and it still feels very, very comfortable in here and quiet. I was just up to 40 there, and it's very quiet, road noise and all of that. It's also very easy to get a good driving position in here. The seats are obviously power adjustable. It's not hard at all to get comfortable in here really quick, which is nice. And the pricing for this is about $58,000 for the Prestige model. So we're sitting in a red light right now, so why not take the opportunity to see what this has under the hood when you really step on it. Let's go. Flooring it. Sounds pretty good. It does have some pull. It's still fun to drive. These SUVs, crossover SUVs these days, they still don't sit as high up as an off-roader, so they still have some cool handling dynamics to them, even though they are crossover SUVs. Now I'm gonna make a U-turn here, and then we're gonna try out these paddles and see how this 7-speed automatic handles when I have it in sporty manual settings. All right, it handles pretty well, exactly what I expected from a Q5. Nothing crazy going on, but it feels good. It's pretty fun to still use the paddles in this car. I love what Audi is doing with their interiors these days. It's very chiseled in here, and I think it's a good connection to the exterior design with the interior designs of Audis. And as I said, I'm gonna stop complaining about BMW screens, because that's what we have these days. But I so much prefer this so much more than the screens that we have in new BMWs. They used to have this just one generation ago, the perfect setup for the BMWs, and then they went to this big screen. But this just feels more cozy, and it also feels like the designers, they had some fun. They put some effort into actually designing the housing, create a framing, dual framing. We have the big thick framing up here, and you have some trim piece inside of this as well. It's just it makes the interior feel more beautiful, in my opinion. Huge thanks to Audi Denver for providing this Q5 for me to review for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And if you're interested in this vehicle or any other vehicle that they have on the lot here, make sure you go to Audi Denver and their website. I'm going to link that down in the description at audidenver.com. And I hope to see you in the next one.